Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to another great episode of the Van Buren Variety Show. I'm certainly glad you're here. I am Bob Van Buren, your host. So buckle up. We've got a great show again tonight that I know that you will really learn from, as I have already talking to my next guest. Hope you've all had a great week so far. I have too, as well. Had some great health news for myself. Don't know if you had watched a previous episode, but I kind of had a health scare here a while back. But long story short, went to a specialist, heart specialist. They put me on one of those treadmills, those heart specialist, stress tests. Everything turned out great. Yesterday, I went for an echocardiogram, and I'm always nervous, So, but today, got the news from the doctor, clean bill of health, no blockage, nothing. So, thank you, Lord. So I appreciate all the prayers and the concerns. So I'll be around for a little while longer. So I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing for y'all. So just let you know. So I'm feeling pretty good. I hope you've had a great week so far. Just a reminder for those of you that are new coming, that are just now finding this show, would like to remind you that I am on the air once a week with an individual guest, a guest that may talk about his or her profession. It could be an interesting hobby that they have. They might even provide some entertainment. So it depends on who and what they're talking about. You'll always see it here once a week. So if you would like to get more information and be updated when future shows are coming, make sure you hit that subscribe button, because when you subscribe, you can see upcoming shows or what topics are going to be discussed. And as always, if you do like this episode, make sure you hit that like button, because we really want to get those likes up if you really like the show. And that tells me, my guest, that people are watching, they have questions. And so it helps everybody out concerned. So if you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe. But regardless, I'm glad you're all here. Again, a great show tonight and a very interesting topic that I think we can all learn from. We have doctors and nurses everywhere. We go to hospitals, we're going to see a nurse, we're going to see a doctor, doctor's offices. I just mentioned specialist. Even though I went to a doctor who's a specialist, he had nurses there. So we really appreciate our medical staff, doctors, nurses, even the ones that help back office with all the clerical work. I mean, there's so many careers in the medical field that we appreciate everybody that is in that, because it helps us. I mean, we could not function without our doctors and our nurses. So again, a shout out to everybody in the medical team, EMTs, our doctors and nurses. So that's what our topic is tonight. But I heard a term that I had never heard before, and maybe you have. Maybe I've been under a rock somewhere, but we'll find out. Have you ever heard the term traveling nurse? Okay, it is a legitimate career. It's something that a lot of people are into right now. I personally had never heard it. I mean, I realize there are contractors from people that go from one company to another, maybe a 6-month contract here, a 1-year contract here, but I never heard it in the medical field. And that's exactly the guest that I have tonight. And he is going to be talking about his experiences as well as some interesting books about his life and his career. So you don't want to miss that. So without further ado, let me bring my special guest on for tonight's broadcast. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce you to Ankit Shukla. He is a traveling nurse, and he's going to be telling us all about his career, how he got into it, and most importantly, his books about his life experiences. So Ankit, welcome to the Van Buren Variety Show.
Yeah, thanks, Bob, for having me.
So when we hear the term traveling nurse, as I didn't know what it was prior to me talking to you. So can you tell our audience what is a traveling nurse? What is a traveling nurse overall?
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, especially now, but even well before COVID, there's always been a nursing shortage pretty much all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
So, to be a nurse, you have to have a good amount of training.
Absolutely.
And, not everybody obviously wants to go into the profession. So there's pretty much a lot more sick people needing treatment for various reasons. Then there are people to take care of them. So there's always a nursing shortage. There always has been, always will be, and especially now, it's really,
Absolutely.
exponential right now with all the stuff going on. but I don't need to regurgitate that. People can, I think we all know what's been going on the last couple of
Sure.
years, but yeah, so basically what travel nurses do is they travel around the country, and there's also options for traveling around the world. There's various companies with which you can do that for,
Mhm.
but they go in and they into facilities, whether they're hospitals or clinics, various outpatient settings. They basically go into those facilities and help out for a few months because that particular facility has a severe staffing shortage for whatever
Sure.
reason. There could be many reasons why, but yeah, they have a severe staffing shortage and they need more nurses to come on board to help them out for at least a short period of time. So traveling nurses go in, help out in those facilities until that particular facility is able to get its own full-time staff up and running again, to where they won't need the extra help from traveling nurses.
Hmm.
And they have traveling nurses for all of the specialties, like emergency department, ICU. I particularly do dialysis, med
Sure.
surge, also various sorts of outpatient settings. So most of the traveling nurses, they go in and help out in specific specialties. Some nurses might do multiple specialties. It depends. Yeah.
Very interesting. You talk about how they're there for a specific time until that hospital has enough staff now. Is there a particular time frame, a set time frame? Could it be, I mean, 6 months? Could it be a year, or does it depend on the situation?
A lot of it depends on the situation. Usually, most of the time, minimum contracts are about 3 months.
3 months.
Sometimes they can be lower, depending. And
Hmm.
then after that 3 month period, if the facility still needs help and the traveling nurse wants to stay longer, they can extend their contract for another 3 months or whatever. But yeah, so I'd say the minimum is generally 3 months, but it can vary.
Let's see. That's very interesting. So, kind of tell me, so if you're a traveling nurse, have you been to a lot of places then? I mean, have you go all over the US, or have you been?
Yeah, I have. I worked in about, God, I'd have to count again, but off the top of my head, about 13 different states I've worked in.
Wow.
As far as like traveling, I've been to 46 of the
Uh-huh.
50 states. Yeah.
Wow. Well traveled then. I think that would be a job that you would be well traveled in.
Yeah.
Well, how did you get interested in nursing overall? How did that start? When did you decide you wanted to do this?
Probably late in high school. Figured I would go into the medical field. Nursing seemed like a good option because it provided the opportunity to have more direct patient care than you would if you were a medical doctor.
Hmm.
Plus, I don't know if I was smart enough to go to medical school.
That's a long time, isn't it? But
Mhm.
being a nurse isn't just something you can be flippant with. I mean, nursing takes
Mhm.
education, of course,
It does.
seriousness and determination. So, for anybody that's watching this, whether they're watching live or watching the recording of this, if somebody they know is interested in nursing, what would you suggest? Where would they start as far as education and getting the requirements?
Sure. I mean, they would have to determine whether they go to a community college or university. You
Hmm.
can Both options are available. You can also either get an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree. I would say at this point it might be better to go the bachelor's degree route just
Bachelor's?
because I don't know, it just opens up more opportunities later on if you want to go and get into management and things like that. And also, I don't know where we're headed. They might at some point require everyone to be a BSN, like a bachelor's degree holder. So, um, yeah, you could go that route. For me, that took me 4 years.
4 years. Okay.
2 years of prereqs and then 2 years of nursing school. But there are varying options out there, so people can kind of research the colleges and universities in their local area and see what options are available there. So
I
I would
see.
say I don't, um, try to obviously start getting, if you're starting college, start getting a lot of the prerequisites out of the way,
Sure.
which are necessary. And yeah, just maybe there's also it's maybe a little bit harder now with the whole COVID situation, but try to see if you can get into a hospital or some type of medical facility to do some type of shadowing or volunteering. I mean, there's also options of, taking a summer course or a course that's a few months long to become an EMT or a CNA. So it can kind of get you into the medical field, at the basic setting, and then you can kind of get the experience that way.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned something earlier. I guess I'm not familiar with that term. You mentioned BSN. What does that stand for?
Bachelor's of Science in Nursing.
Bachelor of Science. I just want to make sure I got
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So, okay. So, wow, very interesting. So, we have a question from our audience that's watching live. It's a
Oh,
question for
okay.
you, Ankit, and I'll display what it says on our show here. Randy asks, do you have to be certified in all the states you work in?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. So, short answer, yes. Long answer, there's what's called a compact license. So there's last time I checked, it's about 25 states where that follow the compact licensure rules. So if you have a license in one of those particular states, you're able to work with that license in the other, 24 states. Just make sure you have residency in the state that you have your license in, your primary license in, and then make sure you have multi-state privileges. So for example, I live in Colorado, which is part of the compact, so I can work in any of the other, and I have multi-state privileges, so I can work in like the other 24 states with that same license. So for example, you're in Texas. Texas is a compact state. I could. Oh, I hope you're okay with your audience knowing you're in Texas.
No, most
Yeah,
of them are from Texas. That's okay.
awesome. That's all. But with my Colorado license, I can go work in Texas and without having to transfer my license. Same, there's like Arizona's a compact state. I think Florida newly became a compact state, and there's a bunch of them. There's, like I said, like I think last time I checked, there was like 25 states. There might be more now with more recent updates. But yeah, so with the compact license, you can work in like those 25 states without having to transfer. But then the states that aren't part of the compact, you do have to get a license in that particular state, like California, for example, or New York. You have to get licenses in those particular states where you
For
can
that individual
work in there.
state. I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now there are some loopholes around it. Not, I wouldn't say loopholes, but I don't know what else to call them. But there are some exceptions. For example, sometimes if you work for the VA, the Department of Veterans Affairs, you can oftentimes work anywhere with any type of license. That also is also true for certain federal nursing jobs. I was actually looking at something earlier today online. There was a federal occupational health nursing job online, and it basically said on there, qualification, active license from any state. So, yeah.
Interesting. That was a good question, Randy. I hope that answered your question. I mean, that was a good, so that kind of makes more sense because I mean, well, how terrible would that be if you had to get a license for every individual state in the union? Yeah, that would be kind of. I'm glad they kind of was able to condense that a little bit, So
Yeah.
okay. Now you're a nurse, but is there a certain specialty that you're in?
Yeah, I work in dialysis.
Dialysis.
Mhm.
Okay. Uh, why would you? I'm being asking just your opinion. In your experience, why do most people have to go on dialysis? What's happened there? Just for our audience.
The two most common causes, because dialysis is for people who go into kidney failure. They're full-blown kidney failure. The kidneys are no longer functioning, or at least not functioning well enough to where they can support life. Unfortunately, it's not functional enough to do what it needs to do. So, people who are in kidney failure have to be on dialysis. And the most common causes of kidney failure are high blood pressure or diabetes, which are both, unfortunately, in our country, are very common
They're
diseases.
very high. Yeah, it's high up there
Yeah,
on the ladder.
yeah.
Um,
So those are the two common reasons. Other things like autoimmune diseases. Some people are born with certain autoimmune diseases. For example, polycystic kidney disease, where your kidneys have a lot of cysts on them that can
oh
affect the
yeah.
functioning of the kidneys. There's also different autoimmune diseases that can attack the kidneys. So, that's just kind of one of the things you can't help it because you're born with it, I think. Um, sometimes, trauma, various types of
Yeah.
injury, toxicity can lead to kidney failure. I heard this really weird story once. I was at a clinic. There was this guy. He was a football coach, kind of young, probably early to mid 30s, healthy guy,
Hmm.
and he was on dialysis. And actually, what happened? It was kind of an interesting story that he told me. He got a really bad tooth infection, and somehow that infection, became systemic. It traveled through his
Oh, worked
bloodstream
its way
down into his
down.
kidneys, down into
Mm.
through his kidneys. He got a severe kidney infection, and that ended up and that ended up putting him into kidney failure. I believe because he was young and relatively healthy. From I can't remember if he got a transplant or if his kidneys just eventually recovered on their own. I think he got a transplant because he was a pretty young guy. But still, that was kind of one of those things like, wow. I mean, it's rare, but it can happen.
Yeah, well, that's yeah, you really just can't play around, with that. So like I said, I've because of my health scare I had last month, I've taken more charge of my health. So uh, definitely something to think about. So, but yeah, I don't want to diminish dialysis. I have a cousin that was on dialysis, and that it prolonged his life. I mean, he needed it, but and
Oh
it was
yeah,
something that was really, really important. So I'm glad we have
yeah.
people like you out there that's helping with that. Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah,
Let me
thank you.
ask you
Yeah,
this. Now, you said you're a traveling nurse, so you go from hospital to hospital or to clinic to clinic. I guess my question would be, how do you find work? In other words, do you go out and search like online, or is your name out there where hospitals call you and say, "Hey, sir,
Mhm.
you're with XYZ hospital. Can you come to work for us?" How does that work when you're trying to find work?
Oh sure, yeah, absolutely. So generally, you're working through a particular travel agency, like travel healthcare agency, and there's many of them out there. My particular one only dealt with dialysis, but there's some travel nursing agencies or travel healthcare agencies that only work with specific specialties. Others work with a variety of them, but there's multiple travel healthcare agencies. So most of us will work directly through one of them, and they kind of help facilitate everything. They kind of communicate with the facilities that need help, and then they reach out to the travelers in their staple and just let them know, hey, these are the availabilities, and we kind of get to choose from what's available.
Sure. How did you, what did you say, what's the word, gravitate? How did you gravitate more towards dialysis? Was just something you were more interested in? I mean, just was it something that you just kind of fell into, or did you try to get into something more dialysis related?
Yeah, absolutely. So, kind of my three most interesting, the especially I was most interested in were neuroscience, the brain,
Hmm.
cardiac, and the renal, which is the kidneys, renal system.
Hmm.
So those, so I did a little bit of neuro, I did a bit of cardiac. It's been many years, but I kind of wanted to get out of the bedside nursing, which bedside
Sure.
nursing means basically the nurses you see when you're admitted into the hospital. They're the ones that the primary ones that are taking care of you, and then you have other specialties outside of that. So I kind of just wanted to get out of the bedside nursing
Sure.
eventually, and kind of the hospital in general at that time. So dialysis was kind of a good option for me. I was able to kind of learn a new specialty and kind of
Good.
find a new routine and do something new. So that and it was hard at first, but yeah, it's something I really fell in love with from the beginning, and it was very interesting. There's definitely a lot more to it than people realize, and yeah, so it's definitely a lot more diverse than one would
Okay.
think. Yeah.
I want to talk about your books coming up. Those are very interesting. I look forward to reading them myself. But before we get into that, let me just ask one more question about the dialysis procedure, if you don't mind. Like I said, I'm not familiar with it a whole lot. So let's just say, you know, John Doe patient comes in and wants dialysis. What all does that involve? I mean, when they say they come to in for an appointment, how long does that usually take from beginning to end, from the time they start before they leave? What's the normal time, or is there a
Sure.
set time?
So if someone needs dialysis, let's say they're at a clinic, they would come in for their scheduled time. Um, it varies how much the dialysis treatment actually is, depending
Hmm.
on the individual patient's needs, their particular kidney function and fluid
Hmm.
status, all sorts of things. So the doctor kind of determines amount of time that they're going to run. On average, most patients run anywhere between 3 to 4 hours and come
Three to
in three
four
days a week.
hours.
Yeah,
Oh
and come
wow,
in
I didn't
three
know it was
days a
that
week.
long.
Yeah,
Wow.
and they come in 3 days a week. In rare instances, I've seen less than 3 hours. In some cases, more than four. But I'd say the average is somewhere between 3 to 4 hours, sometimes 4.5. So, so they come in. I'd say setup time, roughly, 15, 20 minutes. Leaving, getting everything detached from the patient and everything, another 15, 20. So if they're, let's say, a 4 hour treatment, I guess they
I
could
see.
expect to stay at the clinic at least 4.5 hours.
Sure. But that's the average time. But did you say like maybe 3 to 4 hours and maybe three times a week? Did you say?
Yes.
Oh wow. I was not aware that it was that long. I didn't I mean
Yeah.
obviously it's a necessity, but yeah. See, I told you.
Yeah.
I told my audience I'm learning as much as they are right now.
Yeah.
So I
But
appreciate all
re-
of your information.
yeah, but the thing is, like, people have asked me, can it be shorter than that, or why does it take so long? But really, if you think about it, your kidneys, when they're functioning 24/7.
Yeah, it's
They're
true.
functioning right now, just like any other organ. So
Hmm.
when they're in kidney failure, you're they're not functioning anymore, not functioning well enough
Yeah,
to sustain life. So dialysis, you're condensing 24/7 process into just a few hours a day, a few days a
short
week.
amount of
So
time. Yeah.
yeah, so if you
Hmm.
yeah, so it's got to be at least a certain amount of time for it to give to allow for proper cleaning of the blood and removing the excess fluid and everything.
I see.
So yeah.
Good education. Yeah. Again, I'd like to talk kind of about your career, traveling nurse. I think that's an interesting career. I mean, because you
Yeah.
get to travel and you get to see, different people and help people. Most of all, I appreciate your helping people that really need it in that time of need. So let's kind of talk about your life experiences now. And you've written a book, actually several books. Let's pull up your first book. And ladies and gentlemen, I highly recommend that you check this out because if you're as interested as I am, you'll definitely be wanting to buy this book and hear his life story. So let's pull up the first book that you said you wrote.
Mhm.
It's called "Don't Live the Good Life, Live the Better Life." The title itself is great. That's pretty
Yeah.
positive. So, kind of tell us a little bit more the summary, kind of what this is about here.
So my whole premise for this book was, I wrote it in 2013. The whole idea is, you know, good. When you say you want a good life, you're kind of limiting
Yeah.
yourself because
Yep.
good has limitations. Once your life is good, it's like, what else are you never not going to go for anything else? But better is essentially limitless. When you say you want a better life, you're essentially always trying to improve yourself in some way, shape, or form,
Sure.
whether it's, career, health, like, for example, your healthcare, you might have been an all-star in your career, finances, but then your health was suffering. So you're like, hey, I got to
Yeah.
improve this aspect of my life. So relationships, whatever, but that's the main premise of that book.
It's like it's a very positive book. Again,
Yeah.
I like what you just explained that because you've heard people, and I'm guilty too, where I say I
Mhm.
just want to live a good life, But
Yeah.
now that you're talking, you've explained that
Hmm.
it's like we're limiting ourselves. I mean, because a good life, it's like you've reached that proverbial glass ceiling.
Hmm.
Whereas if you have the better life, I mean, to me, the sky's the limit. So it's pretty much like a positive. I guess we
Yeah.
could say it's a positive book, obviously, but you're kind of letting people know don't cage themselves in.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't in any way mean that you shouldn't be happy with what you have or be grateful. You should absolutely be grateful. But then, but also open your mind up to other ways that you can improve your life, you know, even though you're happy with where you are as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's like a very, very positive book. It's like that's something that I would want to read too.
Mhm.
Is this on paperback? Is it hard book copy, or is it both?
Both, and then it's your best spot is either this particular book, I self-published it. It's available through Amazon, or
Okay,
you can also
Amazon.
get it, yeah, or you can get it directly from the publisher at Ex Libris. It's xlibris.com.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sound like it's a must read to me. So
Yeah.
we'll bring this back up for the show ends. But ladies and gentlemen, it's called "Don't Live the Good Life, Live the Better Life." And to me, that in itself is great advice. So I can imagine what the book's like. So, okay. And then you wrote a second book. Let's bring this one up too. This one's called Going Global, The Life of a Traveling Nurse. It's not like it's a biography or autobiography, is it?
Kind of. I mean, it's mostly just focusing on my travel nursing career, just some of the experiences I had as a traveling nurse, and talks about the different states I went to. And it basically goes from the years 2010 to 2017.
Oh wow! I bet that was interesting. And then I noticed the top, Ankit, it says the Quilly Award winning author. I haven't heard of the Quilly Award. So is that a yearly thing that they give book authors?
Yeah, so and actually I got that because I contributed a chapter to a best-selling book by Brian Tracy called Beat the Curve.
Uh huh.
I can't remember which chapter I wrote, but I wrote the chapter about adapting to change. Um, so many authors contributed to that book as a whole. So that's why we were or the Quilly Award for that particular
I
book.
see.
Mhm.
Is this one also available on Amazon, or what are other places that people can buy this if they're interested?
Yeah, that book is available on Amazon. And also, if anybody has any issues buying any of my books, I'm in the middle of transitioning publishers, so some of the books may not be available, but I do have hard copies available, physical copies. So if anybody wants to reach out to me directly, I can give them that info later. But I can certainly give them whatever limited supply I have right now.
Let's see. Well, I got a
Yeah.
question for you. How did you find the time to write not just one book, but multiple books and still be a traveling nurse? Where did you find the time?
Yeah, it's just using whatever free time your free time, and whatever time you can fit in. Making a lot of that has to just do focus and discipline, and when you have the time to write, make sure that you use that time wisely. If you have 3 or 4 hours on a particular evening or a weekend day that you can devote to just writing,
Uh-huh.
or whatever your particular goal is, then definitely use that time and make it as distraction free as possible. Stay disciplined and just start writing. There are times
Absolutely.
where I wrote even just maybe a few paragraphs or a page. There were other days where I just wrote multiple pages in a
Wow.
single sitting. So it all depends on the time and how much focus you have.
That's great. But that's
Mhm.
not all the books you've written. Let me bring another one. Your third book you've written for my audience. Let's bring this one up, ladies and gentlemen. This one's called Crossing the Bedside, Healthcare Workers' Most Memorable Stories. So this sounds interesting. Kind of give us a summary details of this one.
Yeah, so that's a amalgamation of various healthcare stories from different healthcare workers. I tried to include a variety of stories in there, some doom and gloom, some more positive.
Hmm.
But each chapter is a story from a different healthcare worker, kind of just all combined into one. And the idea is, okay, like we have a hospital bed, and they have probably been, or a stretcher, whatever you're thinking of.
Sure. Uh-huh.
They've probably, if they could talk, they probably have all sorts of stories to tell us.
Oh,
But,
sure.
beds don't talk. So the next best thing is, hearing those stories from the healthcare workers who stood by those beds uh, for years and decades. Um, this book I wrote about was it 2018, so obviously
Oh,
well
pretty recent.
before our current situation. So I haven't decided yet. I'll probably do it later on, but I may expand this particular book to include a lot more stories of the past couple of years where things really got crazy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
But anytime you deal with the public, though, I don't mean to put a dark cloud or anything. I mean, you have the patients that you just really love that you would do anything for. I'm sure, but I'm sure you probably had some difficult ones along the way, don't you think?
sure. Sure.
Yeah.
And I say the majority of my patients are good and grateful. Some some patients that people thought were difficult, I didn't find too bad. There are some that,
That's good.
yes,
I'm glad to
they
hear that.
are legitimately, yeah. But the thing is, as long as they're allowing me to take care of them and they're for the most part respectful, I'm fine. It's when they cross that line of being disrespectful or full or abusive. Something I don't think anyone should take.
Yeah, you shouldn't put up with
That's
that.
not part of our job. It's not our part. it's our job to take care of you, be empathetic, be as kind as possible. Yeah, it's not a healthcare worker's job to take abuse.
Exactly.
So if it goes into that realm, that's when you have to take a step back and say, hey, listen, this is not something I can take. And you at that point hope that your management has your back, in which in a
Sure.
lot of cases you do. If you're ever in a situation where you are taking a lot of abuse and you're not getting support from management or whoever, then it might be time to step away and
Sure.
find somewhere else to work. And I would say that for anyone working anywhere, put up with it, don't put up with it so much. And, if you voice your concerns and, things still don't change, then, hey, you might need to at that point because nobody needs to work in a toxic
No,
environment. Work should be tough, but shouldn't be toxic. Yeah.
I agree. The reason I brought that up, and I was not in nursing, obviously, but many years ago, a life ago, I worked in retail. And so there were some customers
Yeah.
that came in our
Dialysis.
store that, yes, I know, right, that I would just do anything for. I would go to the ends of the earth with. And then we had some customers that would come in that they were looking for a fight, and so just like,
Yeah.
but again, what you talked about, I'm glad you brought that up about having a manager that'll back you up. I had a manager at this particular retail store, and she would not let her employees be bullied or insulted. And so I did have such an incident, and she stepped in. So I just kind of stepped back and let her do it. And that customer kind of wished he hadn't started anything after that.
Yeah,
So,
that's good. Yeah, that's good.
yeah.
And
Now you talked,
and
okay.
I was just saying, like, it's weird. Like, different states have different rules and different, I guess, tolerance levels. I mean, when I was working in Nevada, I recall they actually, kicked a patient out of the ER that was being verbally abusive.
Oh,
And,
wow.
they have signs all over the hospital saying, hey, you strike a healthcare worker, it's so and so many years in jail. And it's like, geez, why is that not a law everywhere? In other states I've worked, it's just like a particular patient will literally, physically abuse a staff member. They might get kicked out of the hospital for that one moment, but then they're right back in, because, it's,
Mhm.
the law is iffy. Obviously, we can't refuse emergency care to people, but,
Yeah.
so it's kind of a fine line you have to walk.
So you mentioned earlier before you got more into being a dialysis nurse, you kind of, I don't want to use the word general practitioner, but you were just kind of, you help bedside, what I think the word you used, wasn't it? And did you just do hospitals? Was it also clinics, or was it nursing homes, or just was it hospitals only?
When I was doing bedside nursing, yeah, it was hospitals.
So that could be anybody. It could have been a woman that had a baby, or somebody's
No,
having
no.
surgery.
Well, I mean, there's different specialties. I mean, I never worked in like OBGYN or
Mhm.
labor and delivery or anything like that. I
Oh, I
mean,
see. Okay.
but I mean, I took care of post-surgical patients at times and various people with different illnesses. So yeah, I mean, sometimes we would have women that, post pregnancy that had maybe some other health concerns that they needed to come to one of our floors for. But
I
yeah.
see. What would you say, Ankit, your career, which is absolutely interesting? Like I said, my hat's off to you and all the people in medical. What do you say is the most rewarding part of your career, being a traveling nurse?
Um, I mean, I guess just being able to adapt really quickly. And also, a lot of
Hmm.
times you'll see, especially working with a patient for long term, especially, maybe it'll happen after one
Sure.
treatment, maybe after multiple. You already see that they're in a better state after working with you than they were before,
Oh, that's great.
whether it's physically, emotionally, mentally, but, just seeing that they're in a better state, after working with you than they were prior.
Absolutely. Making a difference. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I
Yeah.
earlier, Ankit, I put 3 of your books out there, but you've written a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
And you have some there. Could you share some other literature that you've written, and kind of what they're about?
Yeah, absolutely. So my one book, it's called I don't know if you can see that. Okay, the title.
What's
I
it
love you,
called? I
Apu.
love you.
I love you, Apu.
Okay, I love you, Apu. What's that about?
Okay, so I don't know if you remember a couple years ago. Did you watch The Simpsons?
I have watched it. Wasn't a faithful watcher, but I have seen it. Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So are you familiar with that Indian American character on the show, the guy that owned the Quickie Mart, Apu.
Yes, okay, I know you're talking about. Yes, I do.
Yeah, so a few years ago there was like this controversy surrounding him. There's an Indian American comedian who kind of brought up the fact that he's kind of a insensitive stereotype,
Stereotype, yeah.
an old, outdated, even racist stereotype,
Yeah, I
and
remember that.
and he listed a lot of reasons why, and this book basically counters that documentary and defends Apu and basically states why he's not a racist stereotype and why he's actually a good character and actually a positive role model for the Indian American community. So I go through various various reasons for that in the book. So that's what that book's about, and that's actually available on Lit Genius Books now.
Okay.
Or Amazon, litgeniusbooks.com. That's my new publisher.
Okay, great.
They're actually based out of Texas. But yeah, they're spelled LIT Genius Books, all one word.com.
Okay.
So that, yeah, and then one of my books, I had written this a while ago, but I recently transitioned it to my new publisher. It's actually my first children's book. I don't know if you can see
The
that
children's
title.
book. Okay, all right. I Love Your Food. That's the name of it. Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
that's my children's book. So that's
Is that what it's
also
about? Eating
available.
healthy? Is it about eating healthy? I guess for kids, or what would you say?
No, it's actually about. There's people of varying backgrounds, including there's like a bully at the school that torments a lot of the kids, as happens in most schools.
Yeah.
But the idea is that people of varying backgrounds come together because of the love of the same food. There's a little bit of international cuisine in there as well.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, so I Love Your Food. That's what that book is about. And that's also available on Lit Genius Books or litgeniusbook.com or Amazon. And then my latest book, this just got published like a couple weeks ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's called
My COVID hero. Is that what it's called? Yeah,
it is.
My COVID hero. I think we kind of know what that's about, but go ahead and give us a summary anyway.
So that's it's actually the story of a garbage man. There's actually a boy who's kind of obsessed with superheroes, and also a lot of his friends, parents, or dads, they're doctors, lawyers, businessmen, whatever. But the little boy is actually ashamed of his dad a little bit because he's a garbage man. How kids can be, you don't understand when
embarrassed.
you're that young, yeah. But then throughout the book, a lot of things happen, related to COVID and various other things. And the young boy's dad, like, he steps up in a lot of different ways. And, he even puts his life on the line, as a lot of essential workers did over the past couple of years, not knowing what was going on. But then by the end of the book, I don't want to give away the ending, but he basically comes to realize that his dad was the hero that he was always looking for.
Now, is that also a children's book, or is that adults as well?
More so like teen, young adult. Yeah.
Okay, that's perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's 6 books you've written. Man, you have been a busy man.
Working on a few right now. Yeah.
Right. So a traveling nurse, I mean, to me, that's very, very important, especially, at this particular time. Every hospital, I think we've heard it on the news constantly, hospitals, even doctors' clinics are just shorthanded. Even I'll go back to a personal story less than a year ago. My grandmother was in a nursing home, and those poor women that were there were constantly overworked, and they were constantly had signs up, now hiring, LVN. And so would you say traveling nurse? I mean, you are a traveling nurse, but is it a big career, or a lot of people traveling nurses around?
A good amount. Yeah. I mean, especially, I think a lot more people are getting into travel nursing right now because with the state of everything that's going on there, a lot of states, a lot of facilities are paying a lot of money for travel nurses,
Hmm.
and they can make a lot more, significantly, and I mean significantly more money than they could as general, just regular staff nurses, just working for the hospital full time. So a lot of nurses seem to be transitioning into travel careers, and that's kind of putting it, so a lot of the hospitals that aren't getting travel nurses and their staff are leaving, they're severely shorthanded. So
They
it's
are.
getting pretty crazy. It's and it's, I don't know how to fix it really. I'm not, but it's at one of the hospitals here in Colorado. I mean, they're in the ICUs. The patients are, the rooms are getting doubled up. Like they have two patients to a room and everything. And so it's
Sure.
pretty, yeah.
We kind of dabbled on this a little bit at the beginning of the show, but I want to make sure I kind of covered this. Let's just say that right now there's a man or woman that now has their nursing degree, bachelor's, whatever, and they want to be a traveling nurse, but they have never done it themselves. They have the education.
Yeah.
So, how would he or she, get their word out there? Would it be put on like a website called LinkedIn, or do they just send their resumes to different hospitals all over the country? I mean, how would they get started?
So the best way, I mean, you could apply for, look up various travel nursing agencies or travel healthcare agencies
Actual
and try,
agencies. Okay. All right.
yeah. So actually, and then try to get hired on with them and then become a contractor with them, and they can help you find contracts. But I will say, I mean, it might be different now with the pandemic and people being more
Sure.
desperate, but generally, they want at least a year of experience in the particular specialty that
Sure.
you want to
Hmm.
travel with. So it's not like, if you're a new grad and want to start travel nursing, that's probably not a good idea. And most agencies, at least pre-COVID and pre all the situation that was going on now, would not, you know, allow you to become a traveler unless you had at least a year of experience. Out of
Hmm.
desperation, I don't know, that some of that might have changed, but generally they want at least a year of experience before you start travel nursing,
I
which I would
see.
recommend because travel nursing, you have to be knowledgeable and also very flexible, and you kind of have, even though you're going to learn new things along the way, like certain things you're not going to know going into a new environment, but you're kind of working off the assumption that you know what you're doing,
Yeah.
and you have to pick up things very quickly. So you should have at least a good amount of experience in that particular specialty before you start,
I
travel
see.
nursing. Yeah.
What about relocation expenses? As far as, let's just say there's a nurse, traveling nurse in Texas, and they are transferring to a hospital in Georgia, we'll just say. Does the hospital pay for traveling expenses and relocation, or is that up to the nurse himself or herself?
No, they'll give you a certain amount for travel, and then they can set you up with housing and meal
Well,
stipends
that's
as
good.
well. And there's different options for housing. Some you can ask the company to set you up with the housing, or you can also just ask for a stipend and for housing stipend, then you can find your own housing, whatever your preference is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Was wondering about that. Okay.
yeah,
Well, that's good. That's kind of a perk, I guess you could say.
yeah, definitely.
So, so you said most of them are like 3 months long. But if they was, I mean, yeah, 3 months long. But if they wanted you uh, longer, then you have to sign another contract, or is it just
Yeah.
it's just understood you're going to be there a little bit longer?
Now you have to sign another contract. Yeah,
Do you? Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Most hospitals do I know you're in dialysis, but do you do? Would you say, in your experience, most of them are the big hospitals? Are they smaller, or what would you say the size is of most of the hospitals you've worked at?
Oh, it's varied a lot. I mean, I worked for very small community hospitals or rehab centers to very big,
Mm-hmm.
educational hospitals, big, metropolitan hospitals, educational facilities. So I've worked in a large variety of places. And it's changing now because in a lot of hospitals you'll have like a particular dialysis company that'll be contracted with a hospital, and you'll have contracted staff go in and
Yeah.
work, do the dialysis part, but they're
Mm-hmm.
technically employees of the travel or the dialysis company, not so much the hospital. But then some hospitals, especially the bigger ones, they'll have their own internal dialysis staff.
Okay.
that's actually employees of the hospital. So it varies, but yeah, I've worked with all sorts of facilities, and in a lot of places, when you go to a particular area and you're working as a traveling nurse, you might cover multiple hospitals. Some big,
Hmm.
some small, some medium size.
It varies. Yeah.
Yeah.
How long? And I didn't ask you this question. How long have you been doing this? How long have you been a traveling nurse in this field?
Did it for 10 years. Yeah.
10 years. Wow. What the experiences that you've seen? Oh wow.
Yeah.
Hard to imagine.
Yeah.
So yeah, you are well traveled.
Yeah, for sure.
That's very interesting. Oh
Yeah,
wow.
and I
So
and I did two separate assignments in Texas, one in Houston and one in Dallas.
oh really?
Mhm.
Now, have you
Yeah.
ever been to a hospital? Now you're a traveling nurse, but have you ever been to a hospital where there was at least one or another traveling nurse there with you
Yeah,
as well?
sure. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
can happen. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Okay.
happened on a
Very
few occasions. Yeah. Yeah.
depending on the specialty, I guess, right?
Yeah, especially in the need in that particular area or facility. Mhm.
Wow. That I mean, I can only like I said, I'm picturing some of the stories that you've picked up along the
Mhm.
way that's in your book.
Yeah.
So I'm going to bring up your books again for those who are just now joining us. We had a few. Uh, just kind of, I'm going to promote your books again. And remember, you did say Amazon.com was
Mhm.
one of the websites you can go to for these books, correct? And there was another one as well.
Yeah. Lit Genius Books, that's the publisher.
Mhm.
LITGENIUS books.com,
Okay,
all one word, Lit Genius Books. So Um, yeah, you can go to either one of those. If one of my particular books is not on there, and if people want to get them, they can contact me directly, and because I might, because like I said, I'm in the middle of transitioning publisher, so not all the
sure.
books are fully available yet, but yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to bring the books back up just one by one and just show my audience again. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're interested in this traveling nurse career from Ankit,
Mhm.
as I am, you don't want to miss these books. So, again, you can go to his publisher or go to Amazon.com. So, let me just bring them up again for everybody to show. Uh, like I said, the book I'm sure is good, but even the title is perfect. It's something
Mhm.
I really need to refocus my own living on. It's called "Don't Live the Good Life, Live the Better Life," and I think that's a good advice for everybody. I think so.
Mhm.
You know, my own saying is just don't limit yourself. So it's not like you don't have any limits with this one. And then here's this one, which you can see has won an award, the Quilly Award winning author. It's called Going Global, The Life of a Traveling Nurse. So that really sounds interesting. I mean, they all do, but it kind of sound like
Mhm.
almost you kind of put us in the passenger seat with you and get to
Mhm. Yeah.
kind of see what you see and kind of what you've experienced. So that does sound like a very, very interesting book as well. And this other one, this third one, Crossing the Bedside, Healthcare Workers' Most Memorable Stories. This is, ladies and gentlemen, like he said earlier, this is from a host, a variety of people that's told their stories. So I'm sure that there'll be some good stories. I'm sure you got some heartwarming stories. There might be some sad stories too, because you see all kinds. And so I think that's what you said was very intriguing because a bed cannot tell a story or a stretcher or whatever. So this is almost like you're kind of putting a voice there to see all the things that they have seen.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So now, are all these books are they? We talked about their printed books, but are they also like audio books as well?
Uh, Not audiobooks. Some are available through Kindle,
Kindle.
but not
That's what I'm
audiobooks.
sorry.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to try to
Yeah.
say. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What's the average price? So I don't have that information, but just
It varies. I mean,
okay.
it can be anywhere from like 10.99 to 30.
Oh,
It depends on also if they're paperback or softback.
sure.
Some
Well worth it, in my opinion. That's very, very well worth it. So,
yeah.
okay. Well, I don't have any other questions, Ankit. But again, I personally want to say again, I appreciate what you're doing. we need more people like you. We need a lot of ANKITs out there because, we are, not just in the United States, but all over. There is a nursing shortage.
Mhm.
And so, to keep us all healthy, we need more people. So hopefully someone who's watching this will go take the, that career too and do that too. Because we don't want nursing shortages. And like I said, for you and Kid and everybody else who's watching this, who's in the medical field, I can't say enough how much you are appreciated. And I know sometimes it may not feel like you are, but we need you. And so wherever you are and whatever your job is, we really, really appreciate it. So traveling nurse, I learned a new term tonight. And so that's really, really commendable. Did you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, I mean, thank you for having me on the show. It was a really good interview. And if people want to contact me directly, my website's kind of a work in progress. I have to fix a few things, but if people want to contact me via email, it's my name, ANKIT, then O, then N as in Nancy, UR6 at gmail.com.
I'm going to put that up on the screen. It's ANKIT. What was it again?
Yeah, so ANKIT, O, N as in Nancy, UR, the number 6 at gmail.com.
Let me bring that up for everybody just so they can see, because I'm sure that you will get some questions and, probably more people getting information. So let me make sure I type this right. Does this look right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So ladies and gentlemen, if you want to contact Ankit, get more information and hear about his great career, right here. Let me point at it right. Yeah, right there. So make sure you email him. And then, like I said, he's got a website, a work in progress. So be looking for that. And I'm sure we'll be hearing more great things. And Ken, I'm sure you'll be writing some more books. Hopefully, we love it if you guys kind of keep it going. I mean, I realize probably your time you're so stretched sometimes, but we'd love to hear more about your experiences and kind of what you've seen and kind of how you've been helping people, which is probably the most important.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. Yeah, I would love to be on again sometime, for sure.
Okay. Well, Ankit, that's all I have for tonight. I appreciate you being on the show. And again, good luck to you. And we wish you all the best.
All right. Thanks, Bob.
And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for tonight's episode of the Van Buren Variety Show. Just a reminder, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. And also, if you really like this video and the guest that I had on tonight, make sure you like. Again, contact Ankit directly. His email was just up. And also, most importantly, check out his books because that's a wealth of information. It's personal information of somebody who's been there, done that, and is still doing it. So really, really appreciate what Ankit is doing, as well as all of our medical teams out there. Thank you for a job well done. We really do need you, and you are appreciated. That's going to do it for tonight's episode of the Van Buren Variety Show. Certainly glad that you joined in. We will be back next week with another guest with an interesting topic. So hope you'll tune in. So this is Bob Van Buren for the Van Buren Variety Show. Good night, everybody.